Welcome to the Empower Sounds podcast. My name is Mahika, and this podcast is all about sharing the inspiring stories of women from all walks of life, diving behind the mindsets and the missions behind their journeys, their successes, and everything in between. On this episode of the podcast, we are joined by Char, who is not only an incredible model but one of my closest friends. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation, which is part of a 3-part series with a designer and a model scout, which are the 2 previous episodes, and I urge you to go listen to them. But also with the lovely Char, and we talk about everything to do with the modeling industry. It is super insightful and interesting, and I really hope you enjoy. Please rate and review down below in the show notes, and stay tuned for next week. Okay guys, so this episode is a bit different because I'm joined by not only the amazing Char, model, but also one of my best friends. So it's going to be more of a relaxed episode, and I hope you enjoy. So Char, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started as a model in the modeling industry?
Hello. First of all, I'm so excited to be here with you. Honestly, what a privilege to be here with my bestie. Um, so a little bit about me. I'm from Birmingham, boo, and I moved to London for uni a couple of years ago, and I've decided to stay here this year. Um, I started modeling about 2 years ago, I want to say. That's when I first signed with an agency. Um, But because I've been a student since then, I've kind of just been hopping about. It's not been my priority, and it's just been very chill on the side of uni. Now I've signed with an agency since graduating and kind of hoping to take it a little bit further this time, but still kind of a background thing.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about the different agencies that you've worked with and how working with different agencies can contribute to a different experience within modeling?
Yeah, well, they definitely do. Um, so I first signed with a small agency in Nottingham, actually. One day I just felt pretty good. I woke up, my skin was glowing. I was happy on the inside. I was like, let's take some pictures. So I submitted them to, I want to say 12 different agencies, all listed on the British Fashion Association's website as being like, approved agencies. And for months I heard nothing back. And I was like, okay, well, that's the ship sailed. And then I happened to get this email this like one random time. Turns out they'd all been on holiday in this one agency. And they were just like, yeah, we'd really like to sign you. So I signed with them. And they were kind of designed specifically for students. So they never put any pressure on jobs. It was always very workable hours. And they always made sure that the pay was good enough for what you were doing. They'd make sure that travel was paid for, food was paid for, all that kind of stuff. So it was very student friendly. With them, I kind of just did like funky little jobs. Like I do university fashion shows. I did a job for Madame Tussauds. Please don't Google it, it's very embarrassing. But yeah, so with them it was kind of just random little bits of whatever. And then I joined another agency in London after that. They were a commercial agency. And when I signed with them, I don't think I really knew what that meant. And I was like, okay, like I was always waiting for them to send me something that was a bit kind of more exotic, more editorial. And it never came. And I was like, why is this not happening? And I spoke to my agent. He was like, this is, you know what this is, right? And I was like, oh, okay. So with them, it was more about what they'd put me forward for, like TV adverts or commercial jobs, whatever. Um, and I didn't actually get a lot of work through them because most of the big jobs required you to go to multiple casting days. And as a student, I just didn't have that time and it wasn't a priority for me. So I left them. I also was signed to an agency in Lithuania. Fun story, a bit long, but it was good to have some representation there. They represented me worldwide, and it's just a bit exotic compared to my daily life. And now I've left all of those agencies. just because they weren't really good fits for me or my image. And I've joined a new agency in London. They're a little boutique one, so they have fewer people on the board, which is great because you're not competing with people at the same agency. That's a big plus. And they are very focused on putting me forward for jobs that actually I'm going to have a shot at getting because as much as we hate to hear it, it is a lot about how you look. And if you're, an inch too short or an inch too wide, or your hair isn't quite the right color, you won't get that job, no matter how nice you are. So they really focus on like tailoring what they put you forward for, and they work with your strengths as opposed to just trying to push you out everywhere. So yeah, so that's who I'm with now, and never been happier.
That's awesome. It sounds like a really cool journey. Before we go into the Lithuania story, because I want to hear all about that again, um, for people who don't understand the difference between like commercial agencies and editorial agencies, can you please just tell listeners can you please just tell the listeners the different types of agencies that are out there and give some advice to people who are like wanting to be models and not really sure what type of agency to apply for, and like what kind of things are on offer for them?
So actually, a lot of agencies aren't specific to one kind of work. You'll have agencies who will put you forward for commercial, editorial, like everything you can think of. Some of them will be more specific and will only go for, runway models or editorial models. So runway being obviously like on a catwalk, you're very high fashion, you typically have that, you know, elongated, quite slender look. That's what they tend to go for. Um, and then you've got like fashion models or commerce models. So that'll be people on ASOS or the people that you see on posters for like H&M or whatever, when you walk past the window display. There's that kind of stuff. E-commerce, crazy money in e-commerce. Honestly, like people have dreams of being in Vogue, which is editorial work. But what you got get paid, bleh, what you get paid for editorial work compared to commercial work and e-commerce, boy, you want to be an e-com. Um, so yeah, editorial is more like the beautiful artwork, that you see on the cover of Vogue or in little art pieces in magazines. That's the cool stuff that people tend to look for.
That's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. And can you tell us what happened in Lithuania?
So yeah, so I mean, where do I start? Um, I was in my university's fashion society because when I signed with my first agency, they said, it would be good for you to get a bit of practice, experience, just like loosen up in front of the camera. And because they were in Nottingham, it was easier for me to do that where I was in London. Um, and so through that first shoot that I did with them, not only did I meet our wonderful host Monica, but I also met my friend Arta, who is wow, she's just the best. She's honestly great. She is from Lithuania and she signed with an agency here and also with her mother agent in Lithuania. So if you don't know, a mother agent is the one that controls your worldwide appearance. You may be signed with other agencies, but they are the ones that get to decide with you where you go, where you're based, all of that stuff. And they organize essentially all of the other agencies. So hers in Lithuania, and she went home and she went into the office and she showed them my Instagram. They were like, great, we want her. So yeah, so I signed with them almost immediately after that. And I don't know, it was just crazy to me because I was like, they've never met me, but based on Erta's word and like a phone call and some pictures, they were like, yeah, like we think you've got great potential. And it was quite it was just nice. It was nice. It was a nice experience. And they were absolutely lovely. They took good care of me and yeah, nice people.
For people who don't understand, like myself included, what going on like an international modeling trip involves, can you give us the rundown of what that looks like, what like a day in the life of a model on like an international trip looks like, and also um back home? How does that differ?
So I'm going to be honest with you here, and this is something that we will definitely have to touch on again. Um, when you're first starting out as a model, you typically don't get lots of paid work, and you are trying to build your book mostly. Um, so like even it's taken me like 2 years. I've had paid jobs, they haven't been the best. It's only now that I'm really starting to focus on modeling and building my portfolio as opposed to uni taking the forefront that I'm starting to see better paying work come in and more exciting jobs. So when I went to Lithuania, actually, I was just doing test shoots, but I went for an international casting, which is my agency, because at the time, weirdly enough, the Lithuanian agency was my mother agent because they kind of had better connections than the agency I was with. So they were hosting an event where representatives from other incredible agencies all around the world were coming together to sit in this room. And you go in and everyone has like their portfolio. You go in, you tell them your name, they measure you, they have a chat with you, and then they think like they decide whether or not they would like to sign you as well. And it's a really great opportunity for you to get representation in other countries. So for me, my trip to Lithuania was mostly about that, about the day of like, I've got to get up, I've got to make sure my hair is perfect, I've got to wear like the perfect outfit, and then go and just like kind of try and win over all these very crazy important people in a lot of industries. Um, yeah, so for me, it's nice to have that balance of like walking around, exploring, but it is a business trip at the same time. You have to respect that. I mean, I know that my other friends who've done a lot of international work and who have like a more advanced career than me would say that the more you work, the less about business it becomes and the more time you can have fun with, I suppose. But for me, it was kind of like laser focused on this one event. Um, which actually I wanted to touch on. I wanted to touch on a bit, but we'll come back to that. Um,
Okay.
we'll come back to that. Compared to a day here, I guess the jobs that I've been doing here are much easier because you just come home at the end of the day. And like because of that, you work with a lot more intensity, I suppose. You just get the job done in a day and then it's kind of over instead of, like taking your time with it.
And what is it actually like on set? Like for people who've never seen it, but they've just seen it in movies, or it's like this very like um I feel like it's very modeling is very like it's almost inaccessible. It's like this whole like glamorized, like you have to be a specific type of person to be able to get in the club kind of thing. And so a lot of people don't really know what it entails. So what is it like on set and like what is a difficult day of work for you?
Um, I don't think there's such a thing as a typical day of work, honestly. And that is one thing that I love about it is everything is different every time. And it's a lot to do with who you work with and what the setting is. So I've had days where I have been stood outside for 9 hours in like 3 or 4 layers of denim to do shoots. That was in 36-degree heat. And it was a little bit crazy. It was very, very hot, and I was quite ill the day after. Um, but other days, people think it's this big glamorous thing, but until you are well established, you will be working lots of not so great jobs, I would say. Um, you're on your feet the whole time and you get tired, you get hungry because you're actually working. It is work. And it might not be brain power, it might not be manual labor, but it is still very tiring, especially because you're constantly having to make sure that you are representing yourself in the best light, you are always looking good, you're looking refreshed and you know trying to keep that good decorum as well. But I guess a day in the life, if I had to pick my most average shoot or day of work, I guess you wake up early, you get ready, you go in with a bare face, you go in with bare everything. Like this is one thing I've learned, and definitely a piece of advice to take with you is if you're going to go on set, make sure you wear something that you can unbutton or that can go over your head and like your face and your hair without wrecking whatever they've just done to you, because it is very hard when there's like three or four people trying to remove your top without getting rid of every little line that they've just put in on purpose. So always make sure you do that. Yeah, so you go in and you are essentially a mannequin. You're there to be dressed up. You're there to be, decorated, I suppose. And obviously you have your personality. That's what they've hired you for, like your particular look and your personality, but actually they don't want you to come in looking perfect with like full face. So you go in, introduce yourself, and it's basically straight to work. People will be tugging at pieces of you and slapping stuff on your face. Then you put on loads of different outfits or, whatever. And you might be switching up location if it's an outdoor shoot. I've had shoots where where I walked for like half an hour in these crazy 6-inch heels. Um, because, things don't always go to plan and whatever buggy you were meant to be getting a ride in doesn't arrive or whatever. So sometimes, yeah, it's a little bit chaotic. But yeah, essentially it's just a lot of work, a lunch break, a lot more work, and then at the end of the day, if everyone's happy with the results, then you get to go home as planned.
And what you were saying earlier about making sure that everything's perfect and looking good and being ready and how it can be quite tiring, it sounds a little bit mentally exhausting. So, how do you deal with that? Do you have any kind of tools or rituals that you have in place to make sure that you turn up to a day's worth of work replenished, refreshed, and like ready to do everything that you need to do?
That's a good question. I think for me, the way that I stay positive about it is, well, firstly, because I have a life that is very, very different to the everyday life of a model, or like what you would think a model would be. And that helps to keep me grounded. So for me, actually doing the modeling, doing the work that comes with that is exciting, and I look forward to it because it's not the mundanity of every life. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to roll with it. Um, so that in itself helps me to view things in a good light. But I suppose it can be very challenging, worrying about keeping your physique or your skin in like the right state. And I definitely sometimes have moments where I'm like, I probably shouldn't be eating this because my skin will break out and I know that I've got a shoot next week. So it can be a little bit like limiting, but actually it gives me that peace of mind to know that if I don't have that slice of cake, then it might actually make me feel better in the days to come when I don't have like a massive breakout. So for me, it's more about kind of keeping that regimen of looking after myself physically and appearance wise, so that when it comes to the day, I feel confident inside and out, that I don't have to be worried about going to the shoot and not feeling good.
That's really interesting. And how do you make sure that you have good relationship with your body? Because the modeling industry has these very specific beauty standards that you have to adhere to. So how do you make sure that you take care of yourself physically, like you mentioned, without overdoing it and getting to a place that is not balanced or the best mentally?
It is difficult, and I have to admit that, and I admit that on behalf of myself, but also people that I've met who very clearly are struggling with it. Um, the way that I deal with things is I only do things that bring me joy, which can be very hard when I have to motivate myself to go to the gym because, yes, it is a great source of stress relief. Yes, I feel better afterwards, but actually getting out of bed is really hard. Um, but I do like to make sure that I get in, even if it's just like a long walk instead of going to the gym or going for a run. I tried to go for a run today and I just got so embarrassed about my run that I just stopped running and I just walked the rest of the way. It was, not the best. But yeah, in terms of looking after myself, just making sure that I do things that bring me joy. Like if I'm gonna do a workout, I want to do what I want to do on the day. It doesn't have to be a set thing. If I want to go to like a dance class, and yeah, then yeah, I will. I'm gonna do that instead of whatever I should be doing. And when it comes to diet, I am conscious of what I'm consuming, and I'm actually a vegan, so I made the switch to being vegan about a year ago now. And it's just because my body felt so much better. I was less bloated, my skin cleared up. I felt generally lighter in myself, less congested. So sticking to that has really helped me to maintain the physical appearance that I want, but also to feel good in my body. And when it comes to like eating what I want, oh baby, do I. Yeah, it's not like I just don't think a job could ever take away the joy that I want to have in life. Nothing should ever take that away. And for me, food is a massive source of happiness. And like, I like to bake, I like to cook, I like to feed people, and I like to eat. And you should be able to eat what you want, when you want, as much as you want, whenever. And a job shouldn't stop you from doing that. And the way that I've entered the industry is I've come in as me, and they have accepted me as I am. And that is including the amount that I eat, the image that I have with the amount that I eat. So I don't feel the need to change that for anything. And I think as long as you're being honest with yourself, as long as you're entering, if you're going to sign with an agency, if you're going to be applying for jobs, apply in a way that is healthy to you at a healthy state that you're in. Otherwise, you're going to be constantly thinking like, oh my God, like I need to eat less, or I need to eat more protein, or I need to work out more, I need to work out less. If you constantly feel the need to be changing your life to be you, it's not where you should be. And one thing that really has helped me with this is that when I started modeling, I I made a pledge to myself that I would always be myself, and that modeling could never take that away from me, because I was speaking to my niece, and at the time she was 6 years old, and she was telling me about the things that she didn't like about herself. And they were all very, Eurocentric views, very weighted on weight. And I just broke my heart that, she was 6 years old and having this body image that, like, that she wasn't good enough. And I made a promise to me and to her that I will always represent myself as who I am, regardless of what I look like, so that she knows that she can be who she wants to be. Because it shouldn't be about changing yourself for the industry. The industry should be changing for you.
That is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure your niece is so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Um, I wanted to ask you, as well as beauty standards pertaining to weight and size, obviously you just touched on this, but even though there's a shift, the modeling industry and just beauty standards in general are very geared towards a Eurocentric view of what is desirable and what is seen as beautiful. And for our listeners who don't know, like, you don't fit into that mold of Eurocentric beauty. Can you please share your experiences with that and being a mixed race individual as a model, and how you've navigated that and like carving out your own identity?
Absolutely. So my mom's from Bristol. She's white as you can get, and my dad is his parents are Caribbean, but he was born here but raised in the Caribbean and then came back. Um, so I'm a little bit tanned. I've got these curls, I've got a little bit of a booty and some thighs that will never leave me. And, I think that at the minute, the industry is broadening the images that it wants to include. And that is brilliant. And I hope that it continues to change. But at the same time, the way that brands are going about doing that is very tick boxy. I have literally been told by a previous agent that the way that they select models is they'll say, we want one person of this race, one person of this race, and then we want another person of that race. So we have the full collection. We look like we're inclusive. Now send us who fits these briefs. And, for me, in terms of like value, I would say my image is very on trend. And that is horrible to say, but it's true. So for me, getting work is, people will accept me for what I look like. Whereas 5, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been hired. And I'm hoping that it continues to be that more and more diversely beautiful people are represented in this way and that they also get the opportunities to get these jobs. But at the minute, it does feel very like I'm only there because they feel like it's politically correct, and I think it also does affect what kinds of jobs you're getting, because I suppose I am kind of more commercial because people want to represent a diverse range of people um in commercials so that buyers feel more, I don't know, acclimatized, or I don't know the word for this. I'm racking my brains, but it's not there. Um, and so yeah, so they are trying to tick boxes, which is both good and bad. And I hope that it continues to get better in the years to come.
Do you think social media is helping in broadening beauty standards and opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds to not only get scouted, but get work and like have visibility? How has it impacted your career?
I definitely think it is, yeah, because I mean, before this crazy wave of social media, like people in the most remote corners of Earth would have been completely overlooked. And now we've got like models being signed to the best agencies in the world from like tiny, tiny villages in like unknown places. And it's amazing, how that broadens their opportunities to have a successful career as a model. Um, I think in its own right, it can be a little bit demoralizing. I've definitely spent my worst days, I guess, like looking at people who look like me and thinking, how am I meant to get this job when they're like, this much taller, this much prettier, they suit the image better. And I think it can be negative in that way when you have so much, I don't want to say competition because we're all people, but in a way, you are looking to get the same job. It is like I think we spoke about this before. It's kind of like LinkedIn, like, you're just looking to have another thing that someone else doesn't. And at what point can you stop that? Because you are only you, you're only a person. Um, so yeah, social media can be a bit, it can undermine your confidence, or at least it has for me. But actually Instagram has been great for me because I am terrible at posting on there. I'm really bad. But I got scouted for my latest agency through Instagram by this wonderful girl named Bunny. I was sitting in the library, I was doing my work, and I saw a little DM pop up, and she was like, "Hey, I think I can see that you're already signed, but I was wondering if you'd consider switching." And I was like, would I? Maybe I would. And then it turned out to be a whole thing. Obviously, be careful with scams, guys. This like, be careful. But this was a legit thing. And she ended up introducing me to, oh God, I want to say like 8, 10, 12 agencies, and just really pushing for me to join the one that was best suited for me. So, I mean, having a presence and posting, it's not embarrassing. I think there's a view that it can be embarrassing to really be pushing yourself, especially if it doesn't look like you're having success, but actually it takes one breakthrough moment, one person to see a post, and then it could change your life.
That's awesome. And I really liked what you said about kind of overcoming that barrier of being embarrassing because I treat my Instagram like a scrapbook and I love taking pictures.
Oh,
We
your
have
Instagram is
done,
beautiful.
thank you. And we've done a fair few shoots together, just like
Hmm.
hanging out, taking cool pictures and everything. However, people have told me like, what are you doing? Like, who do you think you are? Like, why are you taking those pictures?
But who
And it's
cares?
it's upsetting. And how do you kind of get over that? Because I'm sure that you've had similar comments and it's quite demoralizing. Like, not like, how do you not care what other people think and say about your Instagram, your body, your appearance? Like, how do you just kind of be unapologetically you?
Oh, it has taken me years. It really, truly has. And I'm very lucky in that I never wanted to be a model. It was never an aim of mine. People said it to me when I was younger. They were like, you could go far with this. And my sister was signed when she was younger. My brother's done modeling work. My cousins. I think there's just like my grandma had good cheekbones and she passed them to all of us. And we're very, very lucky people.
They are a
So
beautiful family.
what?
I can
Oh,
testify.
don't everyone's gonna hear. We're gonna get really big egos. We don't want that. Um, but yes, it's it was never an aim of mine. So I'm very lucky that it doesn't have to have so much weight in my life. And because of that, I didn't start until I was ready. I didn't start until, like I said, I woke up that one day and I felt good inside and out. I didn't start when I was young and I suppose a bit more naive, vulnerable to comments about myself. I started when I was confident in myself. And don't get me wrong, there are days when people make comments and I'm like, is that true? And it hits me for a minute. And then I'm like, nah, you know, after a good meal and a nap, I'm like, no, actually, like I don't need to do anything. And one such example of when a pretty awful comment was made about me was actually in Lithuania at the casting. And oh, it hit me. It did hit me for a minute. But also I was like, I kind of saw this coming and I knew exactly how I wanted to handle it and I did it in the exact way that I wanted to. So I was, I'd done a couple of agencies. I was like walking around the room. I was like, who do I go to next? And there was a representative from an agency in Korea. And so I went over, I introduced myself, friendly, bubbly, having a great time. And we were chatting through like my experience and like what campaigns or work I'd done. And he was checking measurements and he was like, Anna, would you be willing to lose some weight for this? And I was like, excuse me? He was like, in Korea, you just wouldn't fit into the clothes. And I was like, okay. And he was like, so you'd lose some weight? And I was like, no. And I stood up and I left because I'm not meant to fit clothes. Clothes are meant to fit me. And it was just like the way he said it, he assumed that I would be willing to do that for the jobs. And it was just crazy to me that, people expect you to lose physically bits of yourself to do this work. And it's not, again, it's not my be all and end all. I'm not going to change like that. But it really hit me for a minute because it was at a point earlier on in this year where I was a bit bigger than I had been, and still by no means, big by industry standards. I was still smaller than average for like a commercial shoot, which is like a standard fit. I'm still smaller than the average person who's gonna buy these clothes. But it was like, I was standing in this room full of people and I was the biggest one there because everyone else was very, very, very skinny. Some of them probably healthy with it, lots of them definitely not. And comparing myself to these people, I thought, oh my God, have I like let myself slip? Am I going to lose jobs because of this? But actually, I sat down to a lunch after he said that, and I sat there, I read my book on my own, I put up a little Insta post, and I had about 50 people respond to my story saying, are they crazy? Don't change yourself. Like, you're perfect as you are. And again, like with the whole social media thing, it can be so encouraging, so positive to have people to remind you that actually, like, some of this is actually crazy. So anyway, that's my little side story about, pressure to change. But yeah, definitely when it comes to posting on social media, Don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. Because at the end of the day, it should be fun as well. If you're doing it for any reason other than fun, if it's not something you enjoy, then you shouldn't be doing it.
I think that's so true. And I think it's a testament to your strength as an individual and your belief in your worth that you don't have to change. What advice do you give to aspiring models, though, so that they don't get taken advantage of and feel like they have to be like they have to change, or they say yes to something that doesn't feel comfy because they want to get a job? Because we were talking about this last time. A job is not only just like, oh, fun, like at the end of the day, if you're a model, it can also be part of your financial security. It's a job.
Absolutely.
So how do you kind of strike that balance between making sure that you kind of take care of yourself financially, but also don't put yourself in a situation that doesn't feel comfortable?
Um, so I'm not able to comment on freelance work because I am too lazy to do that. I have not got the willpower to be searching for my own jobs. So I've always gone through an agency. Um, this is rule number one. Do your research on the agency. If anything bad comes up, don't sign with them. If they're not the right kind of agency for the work that you want to do, don't sign with them. If you go into an interview or you go to a job and you feel uncomfortable, you leave. I don't care if a contract has to be cancelled. I don't care if it's halfway through the day. If someone is not making you feel safe, if you think you're at risk in any way, whether that's the food they're serving or their actions, whether it's like the actual environment, then you leave. Nothing is worth it. You're going to spend way longer in therapy than you will on that job. Like, look after yourself. That's rule number one, is always just be wary of how you feel and trust your intuition. If your gut says something is wrong, then don't do it. There will be more jobs, but there won't be another you if something happens to you. So that's the first thing. Um, Second thing is, I guess you need to make sure that if you're going to sign with an agency, that they really have your back, because lots of agencies will be pushing you out there for any kind of job, big or small, and it might not be the best, and it won't build your portfolio, and it won't pay very well. Or you might have ones like the agency I'm with now. I'm very lucky. They're only pushing me out for good jobs or ones that are going to really build my portfolio to get better jobs. So make sure that your agency has your best interests at heart, because at the end of the day, they're a company. They want to make profits from you. So just be wary of their intent. Um, I also have some general tips about like modeling if you want to hear those.
Oh my God, we would love to hear them. Okay, Charlotte's top tips as a model.
Oh
Drum
god.
roll.
Oh
I don't know how
god,
to
no.
insert a drum
This is too
roll side
much
effect,
pressure.
so use your use your imagination.
Okay, so we'll start with castings. So a casting, if you don't know, is basically where your agency or you, or like however you're going to do it, will send you to a day where you meet whoever's trying to hire you. And there will be lots of other models there. Sometimes the client will select only a few models, and invite only a few people, including yourself, hopefully. Otherwise, it might be an open casting where anyone is free to go. And you go, you meet them, you show them your portfolio. You might have to do like a walk or like practice posing in front of them so they can see you. Um, and then you come away and then they'll tell you if you've got the job or not. My tips for castings. Number one, you don't have to stick to an all black outfit. You do not. You can show personality as long as it shows vaguely your form and figure, and as long as it doesn't impede with like their ability to distinguish you from the clothes. Like nothing outrageous, no glitter. But if you want to have like a t-shirt with like, I don't know, Ariana Grande, I feel like I've definitely seen people in those. So go ahead. Um, so that's my first tip, is like wear something that makes you feel confident, that isn't too outrageous, and that shows your figure and form. If you identify as more feminine, typically they want you to bring heels. You don't have to put them on all the time. You can put them on when you get there. I've seen, oh my God, I've seen so many people walking on like gravel trying to get to a casting already in their 6-inch stilettos. And like you get there and they're like, oh, actually, you would have been fine with trainers. And I'm sitting there and my trainer's like, guys, come on. Like what have you done to yourselves? They've got blisters for weeks. So, take heels just in case. You won't always need them. Um, but again, just be aware that you may have to whip out your feet in the middle of this casting room. And always, always, always be natural. If you've come out of this huge spot the day before and you don't feel confident with it, just you can whack some concealer on, but they do not want a full face. They want to see what you look like with your eye bags on your worst day. They want to see what you look like on your worst day, so that if you walk into their shoot or their job and it is your worst day, they know what they're getting, because anything over that is an improvement. So don't rock up with like a face filled with like the most beautiful eyeliner that I can never achieve. One, that would make me jealous, but two, that's not going to get you the job. And always go with, first of all, your hair natural, and second of all, a bobble and some bobby pins or whatever you want to call them, because again, they probably want to see your facial structure. I have big hair and I love it. And I feel the most confident walking into a casting with my big hair out. And more often than not, they will ask me to hold it back or to put it up in a bun or whatever, a little ponytail, because they do want to see your face. So there's no point spending like a couple hours trying to straighten or curl your hair to make it look perfect, because actually you're gonna end up ruining it anyway. So yeah, that's probably it for castings. Again, if you don't feel safe going to a location, don't go. And if it's not convenient for your timeline, don't go, because the job probably won't be either. Um, yeah, for castings, I want to say that's it. I mean, we've kind of already done shoots, I guess. I don't really have that much else to say other than actually
Anyway,
my pre-shoot ritual,
oh,
which
okay.
is a godsend.
Spilling
So
all the secrets.
we're talking the night before, okay? You have yourself a good dinner. I'm having like ginger and lemon tea. You want to sleep good, maybe a little CBD oil capsule thing. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Like, I sleep
Girl,
so
is
much
that
better with
legal?
those. They're definitely legal. I mean, if you're gonna smoke something, you do you. But I prefer just to take the capsule because it's fully legal, calms you right down. Not you panicking. You know what I'm like, but not on this podcast. um, yeah, so make sure you calm yourself down, do your full skincare routine. I like to do a little face mask so that I wake up with like, oh, juicy in the morning. I wake up, vitamin C, moisturizer, sunscreen, tea tree oil, and whatever's going on there, and potentially a little concealer. And that is like it. And you want to make sure that you eat. Some people, and I know that I've done this in the past, definitely not a good idea. Sometimes I will wake up and I'll be like, but if I eat, I'm gonna be bloated. And I'm like, I'm not going to eat. No, because you don't know how long you're going to be at that casting for. And actually, the bloat that you think looks terrible probably doesn't look like anything to them. And again, they want to see you at your worst. Because if you're going to get this shoot and you're going to be on the runway, but you have a sandwich like an hour before, yeah, that's what you're going to look like anyway. So definitely make sure you eat, you take snacks with you take water, maybe take a book, because it can be a very long wait sometimes. And always make sure you've got your comp cards. Now, a comp card is basically like a very condensed version of your portfolio. It's like an A4 piece of paper with, one big headshot and then some like mid-length side profile shots and your details on it, so that they know who you are and they can refer back to you. Um, and yeah, just make sure you've got everything in your bag the night before, so that you can't possibly be running around the next day.
Those are very, very practical tips. Thank you so much for sharing all your secrets. I'm sure we're going to have many people listening who are going to try and test them out. My last kind of section of questions for you is you were a student until very, very recently at University College London. That's where we met. And you studied medicinal chemistry. How
Hmm.
did you balance all of the demands of being a model and of being a student full time, and having a social life, and making time to sleep, and writing essays? Well, I don't know if you write essays with a STEM degree, but
Well, yeah, I did write essays and it was hell because I thought I'd chosen the one subject where I didn't have to write essays and then bam, final year just hit me out of nowhere. Um, oh, wow. Again, it depends for everyone because for me, my academic progress has always been more important than modeling because it opens up more opportunities to do with what I want to do. I love chemistry and I sound like a mega nerd, but I really, really enjoy it. And I enjoy it more so than modeling because I can be creative in any form. Modeling is just one way that I do it now. So for me, I have always put my work first, which means that I have said no to castings, which is totally fine. Never let anyone make you feel like you can't say no. And I have only done jobs that, work with my schedule. Like if I had a day where I didn't have lectures, yes, I can say yes to that. But if I had one where I had a lecture that, actually I thought would be kind of important and I didn't really have the time to catch up on afterwards, I would say no to that. Um, so it is just about really being in touch with like how is your workload at the minute? How is your mental at the minute? Have you had time to really rest as well as, socializing, sleeping, doing this, that, and the other for work, and then just trying to like cook and feed yourself at the same time, which I don't know why it's so difficult, but it just takes up so much time. Um, so if you aren't in touch with that, how can you know that you're going to be able to go to this job and give it your all? I would say don't overcommit. If you can't go to a job and give it 100%, then they're not going to hire you again because they could get someone with a better attitude who, has managed to sleep more and who's been looking after their body right. If you can't commit to doing all of that before the job, then you shouldn't be going to the job because clearly something is askew in your personal life. And again, it is a job. It's not just a hobby. It's not just going to take some pictures. It is a real source of funding. And if you do it wrong, you can really fuck up that potential source. I don't know if I can swear, sorry,
yeah, you
but I've done
can.
it now.
You can.
um, yeah, just keep on top of your own feelings. And that's how you know if you can balance it or not.
That is super useful advice. And I feel like also it's useful for anyone, regardless of whether they model or not. Like I definitely know that
Hmm.
I tend to ram my schedule full, but just but yeah, no, it's definitely a lot. I feel like we've spoken a lot about the challenges of your line of work, but it's sounds like it's really fun as well. So can we talk about the most rewarding aspect or some of the most rewarding aspects and what keeps you passionate about your career?
Number one has to be the people, There's no other experience in the world where I would have met such like a wide range of people. I've been to uni, I've met people from diverse backgrounds, like really cool creative people, very, very intelligent, scientific people. You got like humanities, like things that I don't understand, never will understand. But there is something about, modeling where you just are suddenly in a room with everyone all at once. And people who you know that are going to be crazy successful in the future, people who are already crazy successful, like photographers, videographers, models, designers, stylists, like even like fashion students. And you're like, wow, like when else would I have met someone like this? And so just like the opportunity to really engage with people who are so passionate about what they do is such a blessing. Um, and I really enjoy that. And I've made a lot of friends through my modeling jobs. But another thing I suppose is, like I said, my life is very mundane outside of this. It's a lot of like, I don't know. it has been uni, now it's a lot of admin, like sorting out council tax, bro. It's just so long. So like doing a job, it's just so fun. You make a piece of art and you look at it at the end of the day and you're like, wow, like we did that as a team. Like we've made this, but actually at the end of the day, like I didn't know my body could look like that. I didn't know I was that flexible. Do you know what I mean? Like it is a form of art making and it's a great creative outlet. And I am a very creative person in general, so I really enjoy that aspect of it and the freedom of being able to really contribute to a shoot.
That's really, really awesome. And just the way you speak about it makes it so apparent how much you love it. And as your friend and someone who's seen your journey, I know that you are incredible at your job. So
Girl, stop.
where can the audience find you and where can they see all of your lovely work?
Um, well, best place to find me is Instagram at Grazoba. That is Grazoba. Um,
I will link it
I
in the show notes.
thank you. I will literally, I will answer anyone. I will speak to anyone. However, my reply times are, as Micah knows, incredibly poor. So if I just don't get back to you for like 2 weeks, it is because I've deleted the app and I'm just taking a break from social media. I do that all the time. Um, but yes, you can find me there if you want to ask any questions, if you're just curious, or if you want to hire me and pay me, please. That would be great. Also, I am currently signed with Boundary London. So if you do actually want to hire me, you should probably go through them. We can also link that, or I'm going to make you link that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. And my last question for you is, what are you most grateful for?
Oh, like in like my whole life or right
Yes, in
now?
life. You can decide in this moment in life.
I can I have two things?
Yeah, of course you can. You can have three things if you want.
No, that's too much. Um, I am grateful for my first thing, I'm grateful to have the freedom of choice and to be able to always choose. I'm in a fortunate position where, I'm financially able to support myself and I live in a country where my rights are protected and I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do. And that is the most incredible thing in the world. And I am so lucky and so grateful for that. Second, don't make this weird, it's a little bit cheesy, but I'm so grateful for all of my friends and my family who constantly support me through my many, many meltdowns, my ridiculous moments, and who I know will always, always be a part of my life. You definitely. I have loved you since the day that I met you, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life and to be here with you today. Just, lucky me.
Lucky me. Lucky me that I get to interview one of my favorite people on a podcast dedicated to sharing empowering stories from empowering women. So, my amazing, gorgeous friend, you are such an empowering woman, and I'm so proud of you. And thank you for all of your amazing wisdom and insight today. Thank you for listening to the Empower Sounds podcast. Stay tuned next Monday for your weekly dose of inspiration and entertainment.